This video, like all my others, is brought to you by my wonderful patrons. Huge thank you to Stephen Bow for becoming the latest patron. If you like what you see here and you want to help make more videos, you can go to the link in the description or at the end of the video. Thank you very much, and I hope you guys enjoy.
Vansington, Commander Zavala, to Vansingclad, Ikora Ray.
I have a philosophical disagreement with your decision to make the more interesting move instead of the move that brings you closer to victory. The point of a game is to exercise the faculties of war and creation. If you aren't trying to win, you undermine the exercise.
Ray to Zavala.
Both our faculties will be better exercised by facing the unknown.
Zavala to Ray.
But the point of a game is not to achieve the maximum beneficial exercise for both our faculties. It is to achieve victory for yourself. The enemy will never choose to do something interesting for both sides. The enemy will choose to win.
Ray to Zavala.
I want to play out the situation after 6x24. I played to achieve what I want.
Zavala to Ray.
Metagaming. How am I supposed to get any satisfaction from beating you if you don't play to win?
Ray to Zavala.
I'll get back to you after consensus. I don't want you to spend the whole session planning your reply.
Access restricted. Rep number 21230. Insid Glycon. Agent IKO-006. Subject: personal examination of the Glycon Velatus derelict.
As the site of a numinous encounter with the darkness, the Glycon Velatus derelict deserved my direct inspection. I will record here only what I can add to past reports. The sarcophagus growths overrunning the ship are a clever trick, aren't they? To pass the densest thickets, you must link with them, engineered to remind one of the need to use darkness to fight darkness. When I joined the link, I felt what others have reported, a collective haunting, the presence of all those who were devoured by the ship. Why is it that so many places touched by darkness carry a sense of memory? The nightmares we found on the moon, these haunted growths, the Taken, who are the product of a literal taking of the will. Even the unveiling missives, delivered in a clear and casual first person, the common element of identity, memory, consciousness. While the light is impersonal and silent, it is everywhere and in all things, but invisibly so, silently so. Why should memory and identity belong to the darkness? Pujari claimed it was important to understand why Guardians return without an identity. Do we understand why? If memory and identity belong to the darkness, does darkness itself have an identity? A personality? A voice? Is this voice the same as the darkness itself? Savathun, in her Osiris mask, personally oversaw the first expedition to the Glycon Velatus. What did she gain? Was she confirming the success of a game against Callus, an assassination by proxy? Listen to the comments she made. Those spores are harmonizing with a nearby concentration of darkness. How casually she speaks of the darkness, like it's another substance to gather and pump. Did she mean to trick us into treating darkness instrumentally? Just fluid, just a black ooze of evil. Corruption depicted as something you could ladle with a spoon. Would a non-human intelligence recognize fungus and fluid as signs of true evil? Or are these anthropomorphic symbols tapping into our fear of rot? If they are symbols, what are they meant to communicate? True evil feels like Nazino Island. I visited it years ago, searching for a lost friend. The earth seemed cold and dry and thick. When it rained, there was this smell. Ophiuchus wouldn't speak above a whisper. The river Ob has dried and withdrawn, so the island has become a mountain in a sea of forest. But something other than trees grows there. I swear it. We found a place where lightning had struck more than once, and I dug. Found human bones, fibula and tibia, and long femurs, all with knife marks. scraped clean of meat. We do not know exactly what happened on Nazino, but Ofi whispered to me what he felt. A faceless machine, grinding over innocent life, lubricated by neglect and indifferent compliance, indifferent to the suffering it caused, and like a vast slug, it left a stain behind. But is what I felt human evil or universal evil? Is there a difference? Is there a malice which all species of all psychologies could agree upon? The mark of suffering lingered on Nenzino Island. It lingers on the Glycon Velatus. What makes evil stain a place? By what media, in what ink or bile is that evil written? Which is easier to remember, happiness or suffering? Which stains deeper? On the moon, we met only nightmares. Do only nightmares linger? Maybe the answer is right beside me. We are all haunted by our own ghost, aren't we? The documents found aboard the Glycon Velatus attest to Callus's belief in a presence on the far side of his contact ritual, an observer. Is there a wielder of darkness, as we are wielders of light? One or many? When Oryx called the darkness down into an ogre to speak with him, was this the voice that answered? Mara says that there's a distinction between darkness and its chief exponent. A single dominant wielder would suit the ideology of the darkness, as expressed in the Books of Sorrow and the Unveiling Missives. One leader who has either extinguished or subjugated all others, winnowed them down to only the most necessary and effective form. We are many guardians, a complex plurality of light, against one dark agency. In the face of the malignant and continuous suffering aboard this ship, Catabasis' ghost, Gilgamesh, gave up on his guardian. It demanded to be destroyed as relief from the pain of a hopeless existence. Catabasis was left to suffer an unspeakable fate. We are all familiar with stories of lapsed or mistreated ghosts, whether from the Dredgens or from personal encounters with VIP number 3015 and the sadly departed Asher Mir. We've all heard of guardians who've wanted to refuse further resurrection, but this level of despair on the ghost's part is unique. And if prolonged close contact with the agencies of the darkness has this effect on all ghosts, can we expect a massive failure of ghost morale, a general turn towards pessimism and antinatalism? Against overwhelming fear, we must find a way to articulate the strength and the value of the light. Despair and apathy have killed more guardians than any other force. Hope will be our most important armor in the war to come. We must find a way to show our fighting guardians and their ghosts that even when they wield stasis, they do not turn their backs on the light.
Message ends. I am the Cruz, Shax, to Vensing Clock, Ikora Ray.
Dear Ikora Ray, champion of the Crucible, memorable pain in my arse. Resting my voice as I dictate this, my ghost forbids me to incinerate myself so I can return with a fresh throat. Guardians did admire that trick. They called me the Bellowing Phoenix. Ha ha! Reborn in fire to shout again. You wrote me about ghost morale in the Crucible, how the fretful things stay happy when their guardians die so much. The truth is, Ikora, that the Crucible attracts those who have a tolerance for fat lips and burnt fingers. The ghosts are not bothered by their charge's annihilation, so long as it is all in the game. But I did notice a change in the tone of the Crucible when I let my natural enthusiasm shine through. Reprimands were not encouraging the improvement I wanted. Even the audience felt sour and sad when I chastened a newcomer. The answer was behavioral therapy, accompanied by a course of neurotropics to promote neural plasticity and fight depression. By the end of the sessions, I was battering straight through the walls of the clinic in my excitement to show the world who I was. I visited city hospitals and helped children learn how to squeeze the illness straight out of their own shadows. I once headbutted a probability kiln so hard that it produced a live Cabal Centurion, which I then arm-wrestled into submission. When I brought my new excitement to the Crucible, I delighted my players and my audience. We all have our fears and our regrets, certainly. But have I ever told you about my night of passion with Queen Morasov? The passion we shared was pothos, the longing for freedom. This was before Oryx and before my own renewal. I longed for freedom from my duties. She longed for freedom from her doom. The Tempest is a play saturated with the yearning for freedom. It is also concerned with the relationship between master and servant. And when I had finished reciting it, Mara asked me to tell her stories of the once servant who she yearned to meet again as an equal. Sure Ido, the woman I named a Tempest. I told her stories of my friendship with Sure Ido and her great bow. Mara told me of the lost distributary and of Ido's quest to assassinate her in revenge for the Diasrim. I challenged the obvious lies in the story. The Sure Ido I knew, Dragon Slayer, whose arrows pierced illusion, would never have hesitated to kill, no matter how beautiful her target. And how could Jur, who shrugged off talk of gods as nothing of concern, have also been a fanatical servant of this Diasrim, who cared only for lost divinity? Inconsistent, and therefore a lie. Mara was delighted by my disbelief. She told me that she would tell me the truth about Jur if I would only take off my helmet, so she could look into the eyes that had gazed so often on her beloved. Did you know that Pothos is another name for Asphodelia, the white flower of the awoken, white flower of longing? Ikora, here is a question I long to have answered. Why did you leave the Crucible? Shax.
Venting clock, Ikora Ray, 2, I am the Cruce, Shax.
Dear Shax, Lord of the Crucible, you and I both know that the Crucible I fought was darker and more dangerous than the games you run today. Remember Thalor? The truth is that I could not afford to be both Warlock Vanguard and a Crucible champion. To fight in the Crucible is to show the whole world the limits of your power. I could not afford to lose and be revealed as limited. But more importantly, I could not afford to win. What would they say if they knew what I could really do? The danger I could be. Properly yours, Ikora Ray.
Access restricted. Rep number 12059-Incid Loon Follow-up. Agents FEN-092. Subject follow-up on affidavit for incident 12059.
Finchurch and Neville reporting in. I've been able to sit Airy 223 down for a few moments and ask her about the vision I experienced on Luna. See my affidavit regarding number 12059. In short, I saw VIP number 0704 tending to Airy 223's wounds in the wreckage of a destroyed vessel. This was prior to the discovery of the pyramid on Luna. I now believe the wreckage was from a ship of the same type, one of the intruders that presaged the disappearance of Mars, Io, Titan, and Mercury. Airy 223 was reticent to discuss whether the event in the vision had actually occurred. I expressed my frustration with her evasiveness, given the distance I had traveled and my well-established loyalties. Airy 223 invoked the threat of Savathun as a reason to favor secrecy. I asked whether she had been too much influenced by VIP 0704's habits of distrust. She did not reply. As a social gesture, I offered to share my pineapple fried rice, which caused her tremendous distress. After collecting the remnants of the meal, I left. Later that day, Airy 223 approached me to apologize and attempt the conversation again. I was moved and allowed her to open the topic on her own terms. After an elliptical conversation regarding the emotional burden of her role as a constant harbinger of worse to come, Airy 223 confirmed that my vision had actually occurred. According to Airy 223's account, during the time between the Tangled Shore crisis and the discovery of the Lunar Pyramid, VIP number 0704 was in contact with 0101 regarding the approaching intruders. VIP 0101, familiar with the difficulties of recursing time loops, urged 0704 to break out of the Dreaming City and move against the intruders. In 0101's past timeline, or timelines, I am not convinced that she's been entirely truthful about how she moves between times. Would make sense for her to protect her method of transit, given the scale of betrayal she has witnessed. The Awoken never broke Savathun's curse on the Dreaming City, and 0704 expended vital resources there, which were sorely missed during the later stages of the conflict. VIP 0704 was reluctant to leave her people, but decided, as Airy 223 put it, that it was better to do something than nothing, even if that something was the wrong thing. VIP 0704 struck a deal with 0101. 0101 would provide data that a future Rasputin had used to track the intruder's ships, and 0704 would provide the raw paracausal powers that Rasputin lacked. Airy 223 was involved because 0704 had recently extracted her from Crota's abandoned throne world, and felt an emotional debt to 0704 over the past service regarding the defeat of VIP 2015. This was fortuitous. VIP 0704 exploited past traffic with the Nine, as well as her own personal experience with the intruder's stealth capabilities, to disperse an array of synthetic aperture mass growl observatories, coordinated by AICOM X Black, and possibly other deep orbit AI systems. The observatories used future technology, provided by 0101, to localize an interloper ship near the dwarf planet 136199, Eris. Airy 223 was not amused by this coincidence. I induced that she was actually quite disturbed. VIP 0704 refused to deploy any Awoken fleet assets or fallen mercenaries in the confrontation, and even excluded her own Tekkens from the planning. Airy 223 suggests, with what I view as some protectiveness, that 0704 felt it was time for the burden of sacrifice to fall on her rather than her own citizens or pawns. The journey to 136199 Eris was very difficult for Airy 223. VIP 0704 had charged herself with some metaphysical quality salvaged from VIP 2015, which had made it extremely difficult for Eris to tolerate her presence. VIP 0704 was reticent and snappish, probably lingering trauma from her death in a similar battle at Saturn. Whatever transpired between them remains private. Airy 223 was unwilling to precisely describe the encounter with the intruder. It did not react to their presence as they matched orbits. VIP 0704 went on EVA and at one point removed her suit. I believe, but am not certain, that 0704 either contacted or entered the intruder. Whatever happened next led to VIP 0704's death. It is unclear to me whether the intruder was at all damaged, or whether the debris field I saw on the surface of 136199 Eris was related to this encounter. Airy 223 recalled VIP 0704 from her throne by Hive ritual, which required both women to confront Savathun in Karu at great personal risk. The two then descended to the surface of Eris to explore the wreckage there. There was an incident. It may have been an attack, or an accident caused by the volatile debris, or by interaction with 136199 Eris's frozen methane surface. And Airy 223 was badly wounded. Though Airy 223 has techniques to survive in hostile environments, they were disrupted, and she was exposed to near vacuum. VIP 0704 deployed a shelter and treated the wounds in what I interpolate was a moment of reconciliation and genuine tenderness between them. Airy 223 attempted to show me the scar, although I declined. At this point, concerned that they might not survive to make a report, Airy 223 imprinted a log of their journey on the fragment of debris and transmitted it to Luna via Hive manifold, along with a compulsion for any lesser Hive to bring the fragment to a Guardian. This is how it came to me. I am left with more questions. Was the presence of a debris field on the surface totally unrelated to a ship in orbit? If it was related, did VIP 0704 destroy it? And if so, why has she not shared this capability with us? Faced with the skepticism and distrust of so many Guardians, a distrust that has persisted despite 0101's reports that in multiple possible futures, 0704 died fighting alongside our forces in the final reckoning, surely 0704 would want to advertise her victory. If she did destroy that pyramid ship, was it a one-off event that she will be unable to reproduce? Perhaps she has to physically contact a pyramid to destroy it, and the pyramids have now rendered this impossible. Or perhaps she approached in the disguise of VIP 2015, a disguise which is now compromised. VIP 0704 remains a difficult and inscrutable ally.
Message ends. Message reply from ICO 006 to Finn 092.
Mara is a thorny problem. Understand that she sees herself as a queen on a chessboard. Opposite her stands Savathun. They are in a war of understanding. Who will get to the truth of the other first? In this war, honesty is fatal. Giving the enemy accurate information about you helps them remove degrees of freedom from their model of you. It helps them come a little closer to perfectly predicting you. Savathun would delight to see Mara taken. Mara would certainly see Savathun dead and extinguished. Secrets and encryption are central to Mara's philosophy, and so too to the entire Awoken consciousness. She is their Lucifer, their Melek Taus or Fëanor, the one who led a bloody exodus from heaven to fight for the mortal world. Remember the words of their scripture. Creation is built on secrets and the encryptions that keep those secrets safe. If Mara botches her endgame against Savathun and against the entity that she believes rules in the darkness, all of the sacrifices she's made will be for nothing. And she knows, thanks to Elsie, that in many possible futures her sacrifices were in vain. She knows she was betrayed by her own friend, Eris Morn. You see why it's so hard for her to trust. She's entrusted her very life to Eris, and yet even Eris turned against her in one possible world. Mara will never tell the truth when she can afford to lie. She will never act directly when she can afford to move upon. But the opposite is also true. She will never lie when she can afford to tell the truth. She just rarely considers it safe to do so. If your enemy knows how the bomb works, they can disarm it. I believe Mara has begun to consider that she may not be the prime executor of her own endgame. She may be just some components of the bomb, a payload or a timing device. At the end of her own journey, she is necessary but not sufficient. She can no longer fight alone.
Reply ends. Access most restricted. Message reply from IKO-006 to CHA-319. Subject personal reply.
You can say, "Hey friend," if you really want to. Not in public, though. Without a proper chain of command, we have to get by on respect. You asked me, what do we call this sense ghosts have for the nature of the dead? In warlock studies, the customary term is insight. I have also heard scrutiny, and among our more worldly hunters, the weird eye. I asked Ophiuchus, and he said he thought of it as congruence. But I like to call it determination. It means so many different things. Fate, contingency, judgment, persistence in struggle. Ghost sight is determination. It wouldn't be a friendship if it stopped when we didn't talk about it. I don't think the Sunyata principle involves apology, but I feel you're hurt that I haven't made enough time for you. I haven't made time for most things. All my time is spent trying to answer questions. So many people want answers from me, and I have no certainty to give them. What am I if not a source of certitude? What am I? Nothing. But it is good to be nothing, isn't it? It is good to rise above the demands of the world so we can act without compulsion. Only, what if that is an excuse? What if the act of destroying myself and making myself void so that I exist unmoved by the demands of the world and in contact with the transcendent truth is just a cheat? What if I am just absolving myself spiritually of my responsibility to do everything possible to protect what little light and life remains? What if I am being lazy? If the traveler is the only hope we have to escape a winnowing nightmare that will devour all possible organized systems in all possible futures, then by failing to dedicate myself wholly to the traveler's work at all hours and with all thoughts, I am failing the beings that will be extinguished by the nightmare future. Therefore, I am guilty of causing infinite harm, making me the worst human to have ever existed. And, oh, Chalco, you see what haunts me at night. You see why I escape into circles. I am possessed by doubt, manic with it, itching under my fingernails. I wake up with doubt. I medicate on doubt. I snap at people who deserve kindness because doubt seeps out like a bad caulk from the seams of me. So now I unload this doubt onto you. Only you. You are the only one I will show it to. Oh, Chalco, I'm losing myself in doubt. Do we ban stasis? Do we use stasis? Do we arrest stasis users? Do we endorse them openly so they will not be outcasts? Are light and dark meant to be balanced, or is dark a subtle poison that will seep into us until we are turned? How can I know for sure? How can I know well enough to choose with the whole universe at stake? Not by any method I know can I understand these things. I do not have Mara's arrogance. I cannot set the conditions of an entire future and choose for all the choosers unless I know I am doing the right thing. Me. Here I am complaining about myself and how hard things are. This will bore you. You are a person, and a person needs to know they are thought of, and I am not thinking enough of you. But isn't that what you wanted? To know what's happening inside me without needing to ask. Well, here it is, my unformatted vomitorium of doubt. We are this close to losing them all, every guardian, returning to the dark ages of warlords and factions. All that saves us is what little authority the Vanguard still retains. Is stasis the hill we die on? We forbade the Ahamkara, and to do it we had to make the Ahamkara extinct. Though maybe we were doing their work for them. Maybe we were just propelling them along the anathematic arc and towards the unspeakable chord they wanted to climb, out of this world and into another metaphysics that somehow sustains our own. Do we have to make stasis extinct just as we did the Ahamkara? I stop myself here. I remind myself of what I know. The popularity of stasis is a direct result of a structure of power, a system we built here in the Vanguard to incentivize our guardians to respect and obey. Rewards for joining strike missions, bounties and milestones to quantify hard work, elite equipment for loyal performers, everything psychologically calibrated to engage the guardian who might otherwise lapse into a useless fugue and vanish from the rosters of the active. We built this system, we benefited from this system, so we did not change it. Nowhere in that system is there any place for moral judgment. Nowhere is there any ethical instruction, no request for them to evaluate their ultimate purpose. Guardians do what makes them most effective because we taught them to do so. This is our fault. We made our guardians into soldiers, not warriors for good. We led them straight into the enemy's fold. All it had to do was offer a new and intriguing way to get that glimmer, that loot, that bounty, that victory. And it had them. I can forgive a few guardians for doing what had to be done to defeat Aramis, but I cannot forgive myself for letting all the other guardians follow. And why would we teach our guardians to question the rightness of their own actions? Guardians don't like to doubt. I urged them to meditate on their past, and I thought that'd be enough. But even the meditations were just challenges to do it again, but better. I've been a fool, and I don't know how to fix it, Chalco. They ask me questions, and I don't know how to answer them. I can't even tell them who I am because I'm afraid that who I am will not be perfect enough, and they will see the flaws in me and turn away. And the Traveler's reawakening did change what circles mean, you hunter barbarian. Perfectly squaring the circle cannot be accomplished with classical construction so long as pi is a transcendental number, because root pi is not constructible, that is, constructible by a compass and a straight edge in finite steps. But paracausal invocation allows us to set root pi to an arbitrary value, even in a flat manifold, and because the sphere of the awakened traveler defines a toroid in n dimensions. Oh, but that is all evading your point, isn't it? Pujari wrote that ghosts had disproven the existence of absolute, incorruptible good in human beings, because ghosts came from the traveler, which is an absolute good, so they should choose only the absolutely best people to become guardians. But we got warlords anyway, and people like Dredgen Yor, and even like the Drifter, which proves that there is no inner goodness that cannot be broken by a cruel world full of violence and privatation. Of course, Pujari didn't allow for the fallibility of ghosts. I feel like I've just said something very important and don't know what it was. You're right that people think I'm distant and absent, and it's because I feel that people need confidence, not confusion. People seem confident when they don't change, so I stay remote, because what's far away seems immovable. Get too close to people, and there's emotional parallax. They can see how you change. They see that you're complicated inside. I can't afford to have that. I have to be simple for them, simple as Shax. Something hurt me recently, Chalco. Something Elsie told me about her future. She said I died at Savathun's hand, that I died brutally. And the Zavala in her future told her I died because I was stubborn and self-righteous. I know it was another Zavala, wounded and in pain, but to hear that from a man who I respect so deeply, does he think I'm too distant? Even him, when we've shared so much. Thank you for your report. I don't know what to call what we are, Chalco. It's just what we are. Thank you, always, for writing. Maybe I can find some clarity in action now that I've gotten this out.
Reply ends.
By the mind of Empress Keitel, written in proxy by her scribe.
May the water of the Y-goblet wash this message clean of falsehood. Each and every word in service to the people and the future of the Cabal. It begins. To the Spy Master and the Biomvir of the human city, Ikora Ray, the Empress Keitel demands that you reveal all that you know of the current status of the deposed Callus. Be thou now informed that the deposed Callus is wanted for high imperial crimes, including the genocide of the Clips people, perversion of the imperial throne for the solicitation of unnatural bribes and favors, traffic with powers most attainted. Be thou further informed that any collaboration with the deposed Callus, either covert or overt, shall be grounds for the greatest displeasure of the Empress. It ends.
Encrypted personal. Vancing clock. Ikora Ray to Vansington, Commander Zavala.
What do you think? She wants to know if we found Callus aboard the Glycon Velatus.
Zavala to Ray.
Certainly. She wants to know that we're not negotiating with her father behind her back. Which we're not. Are we?
Ray to Zavala.
I can't speak for every one of our guardians who experienced the entertainments aboard the Leviathan, but my hidden have absolutely no formal contact with Callus. I'm going to reply bluntly.
Zavala to Ray.
That seems wise. Are you aware of the religious significance of the Y-goblet? It means this scion is part of a spiritual minority. Remarkable to see the phrase used openly by a scribe the Empress clearly trusts.
Ray to Zavala.
Has someone been gifting you Cabal religious histories? And why does she call me Biomvir?
Zavala to Ray.
Because you're one of the two most powerful people in our government, Ikora.
Ray to Zavala.
I'm relieved I didn't think of that. I don't feel like much of a ruler. Guardians only listen to me if they feel like it. Have you considered a state marriage to Keitel to solidify our alliance?
Zavala to Ray.
Have you? By the mind of Ikora Ray, who needs no proxy, may this message find the Y-goblet full, each and every word in service to the people and future of the city. It begins. We know nothing of Callus's fate. We have no interest in pursuing contact with him, nor have we ever sought formal relations with his court. Guardians who seek his patronage do so without the approval of the traveler. This information is offered freely as thanks for the Empress's assistance during recent crises. But if we do become aware of Callus's disposition, we will not share this information unconditionally. We require that the Empress provide concession or information of like value in exchange for access to our intelligence. It ends.
Access restricted. Rep number 54122. Guardian Stat. Agents CHA-319. Subject. Statistical Analysis of ICO 006.
ICO 006 has until now resisted all requests to undergo the standard test battery. I have convinced her to go on record by accusing her of vanity. Her power can't be so astonishing that to merely assess it for a private file would cause serious unrest. In exchange, I have been induced to include her own philosophical cavil in paragraph 2. Although she has very demonstratively declared that she will not read this file, I don't believe her. ICO 006 comments, Guardians insist on treating power as a monotonically increasing value with a single dimension. Guardians will casually create ordinal ranks of the power of their comrades when, in truth, but not in fact, light is not constrained by facts. Capability with the light is not only a multi-factor landscape, but strongly and stochastically influenced by circumstantial, personal, and esoteric variables. The light is by definition paracausal and obeys a logic different from physical concepts like charge, heat, or angular momentum. Any analogy to those physical measurements of power will fail to capture the true efficacy of a guardian. Instead, we must look to self-understanding clarity of purpose and internalized phenomenologies and ontologies. Witness the self-reinforcing rise of guardian classes and subclasses as logically consistent and easily transmitted bundles of technique, essentially guardian cultural artifacts based on distinct interpretations of the light. Kernel logics from which implementations easily unfold, or to put differently, optimy of discoverability in a phase space of possible techniques. The human or neo-human mind is an agglomeration of automatic processes, and consciousness cannot access most of them. In the same way, most of the truth of the light is invisible to the self-inspection of the light-bearer. Asking any guardian, myself not excluded, to leap through a few experimental hoops is not and never will be an effective way to test their tactical or their epistemological ability. ICO 006 ranks in the upper fraction of the 99th percentile of assessed warlocks on most available metrics of precision, restraint, and raw power. She is, in simplistic terms, a 5th Sigma Guardian, 1 in 3.5 million. Given that millions of Guardians have been activated over the centuries since the collapse, and assuming that the performance of Guardians on these metrics is normally distributed, then we would expect about 10 Guardians of similar power to have existed. Probability favors ICO 006 existence, but also her rarity. She is neither an average Guardian, nor evidence for some special intervention by the traveler. Complaints that her talents are overblown or inflated in order to reinforce her authority, or that she benefits from the special favor of a higher power, are sorely mistaken and ignorant of basic statistics. These complaints come from the same people who ask why we haven't reconquered the whole solar system with our vast strength, forgetting how many Guardians are either in abeyance after exhaustion, still working on mastering their first subclass, or already committed to the protection of populations and resources here on Earth. It is notable that ICO 006 initially performed at only 1 sigma above the mean on most metrics. It was her lengthy experience in the field and in crucible exercises which brought her to her exemplary state. Can we determine whether this was a process of activating extraordinary latent power or simply of honing ordinary power to an extraordinary peak? Signs point to no. ICO 006 is aware that I am required to outline possible countermeasures in the event of her subversion. Of course, we are all aware that combat between Guardians is not a zero-sum contest of power. Context and tactics are decisive. Crucible champions dropped into the wilderness can be brought low by mere fallen skirmishers. Seasoned rangers may die from the first crucible aspirant to skid knees first into them with a shotgun. The fundamental challenge to defeating ICO 006 is that it is very difficult to create a context she cannot master. Her talents are honed towards acquiring and processing information. It would be difficult for even a Golden Age human to understand the time span she has lived, or to grasp the depth and range of the intuitive mechanisms, both cognitive and paracausal, which Ikora has cultivated and internalized. She has achieved a limited clairvoyance, an arsenal of honed preconscious heuristics, which deliver her with no more effort than water flowing downhill to her easiest path to victory. Her goal acts as an attractor in the chaotic landscape of possible futures. She is capable of correctly resolving quandaries like the halting problem, which a Turing machine could not compute given the entire age of the universe. In the great tradition of context manipulators versus brute force, Ikora is another victory for the power of context manipulation. One possible countermeasure is to create a false path to victory to decoy Ikora's senses. The paracausal nature of the light creates some difficulty because it can interact directly with ontology. Ikora has a sense of truth qua truth. She may be aware that a deception is deception simply because it is a deception. Therefore, a calculated fold in the tactical environment designed to draw Ikora into a vulnerable position may fail simply because it is intended to harm her. If I can name a single weakness in ICO 006, it is her distaste for doubt. She thinks quickly and clearly. She is accustomed to receiving the highest quality information and subjecting it to the most pristine and multiply contingent analysis. Cut off her senses, make her anxious, force her to doubt herself, and then flood her with contradictory and high-stakes decisions which cannot be optimized. She will either paralyze herself or turn to raw fury. The fury, at least, is predictable. Test battery results attached. Remember the standard caveats about attempting to systematize and quantify a paracausal system that depends on the internal state of a weakly godlike being and its resurrected human client.
End file.
Pinned in one move, Chowgo.